from KIX Learning Cycles, including communities of practice in 4 thematic areas: the data challenge, early childhood education, inclusive education, and teaching and learning. My name's Marianne, and on behalf of my whole team from UNESCO ICPA today, I welcome you. And we have our partners from the African Union here today as well, and UNICEF Asaro, and our technical partners from ADEA, from VVOB, and so many other organizations. I just want to take you through a couple of opening slides quickly, and then I will pass it over for opening remarks to my colleague, Victoria Kisaki, a senior project coordinator here at UNESCO ICPA. So we welcome you all here today. We're very excited to see you and even more excited to hear from you. So today, what we'll be doing together is that we'll be creating strategies to connect and use key data, lessons, and policy proposals from KIX. KIX is all of you. KIX is not some place somewhere or some internet platform somewhere. It's all of you. It's everyone who takes part in KIX, who comes together for meetings like this one. So we're going to talk today, and we're going to work together to create strategies for how to better connect the knowledge that we have, especially in light of the recent workshops that have been happening this project year, 2021. Today, you will also create or expand on your existing action plans, or further these knowledge sharing opportunities within your contexts and your organizations. So you'll be creating strategies or expanding on current action plans. You'll also be strengthening your ties to the community of practice and officers from within your country as well as across country borders. And you'll be reviewing and validating some salient findings from a project baseline assessment that many of you took part in back in April. So the agenda today, we have a 2-hour meeting, and it's going to be interactive and participant-centered, and you'll leave with strategies. So we're going to have a validation for the project in a few minutes. We're also going to have some updates on 2 thematic areas: the data challenge in education and disability inclusive education. So we'll hear from the African Union and from UNICEF Asaro. Then we're going to hear from 4 participants who took part in recent learning events in 4 thematic areas. So teaching and learning and curriculum development, teacher profession development, inclusivity, the data challenge, and early childhood education. So we'll hear from them directly from their voices. Then we're also going to look at some proposed strategies for how we might move forward as a team. And there'll be some proposals, and there'll be space for you to also make proposals as well. And then the part that we're most excited about is a breakout room discussion that you'll have time for, about 40 minutes to work with people of your country or people of the region of a neighboring country to work on some action plans. What do you want to do next? Where do we want to go next together? What needs to be done in terms of policy review or better knowledge exchange in these thematic areas that we're looking at today: teaching and learning, inclusive education, the data challenge, and early childhood education. And then we'll get to come back into the main room after that for a short plenary, and then we'll look at some resources that are available to you to enact your action plans. So without further ado, I would like to before I actually do that, I want to remind you to please add your country's name to the end of your name in Zoom. So if you look at your box, the small box, either your picture or the black box, in case you have your camera off, there are 3 little dots in the upper right-hand corner of your box. If you click on that, you should have the option to rename yourself. And if you can add your country's name after your own name, that will help us to know who's in the room. Okay? Now, without further ado, I would like to ask my colleague, Victoria Kisaki from UNESCO ICPA, our senior project coordinator, as well as the lead for the KIX project, to give a few welcoming words.
Thank you, Marianne. Good afternoon, colleagues from UNESCO ICPA that is the International Institute for Capacity Building in Africa. We greet you warmly from Addis Ababa, and we are so excited to see that you've been able to create time to attend this event today. I want to recognize the presence of our partners from UNICEF, from African Union. I want to recognize the presence of Hamidou from IDRC that has joined us today. And then we have our technical advisors and regional technical team that already Marianne has mentioned. We have the colleagues from IDEA, VVOB, AFCAN, and others. And then we also have the representatives from the Ministries of Education, KIX Hub focal points. We are very excited to have all of you online, and ladies and gentlemen, I want to say all protocol observed, because we are very, very happy to see you. I bring greetings from our director for the Institute, Dr. Emiko Yokozeki, and I'll just be brief in my remarks because I know that there's so much that we need to talk about today. As I talk, it is 1 year and 7 months since the hub began. It has been quite an interesting journey. A lot has been done, and I want to thank you so much for the participation. And just in the between August and now, we've had about 100 national education officers, policymakers, curriculum writers, and practitioners from 18 ministries of education and local education groups participate in the KIX Hub events. We've done a lot in terms of confronting the data challenge, in terms of thinking through how we redefine the quality of teaching and learning, early childhood education, and learning assessments. There's quite that has been done, and recently we had very interesting learning communities of learning practices on inclusivity and gender equity and equality. Overall, we've had like about 12 workshops that have been taking place in our region, and we thank you so much for your participation. We also had a national dialogue that was held for Kenya, which was such a great success, and we want to thank the team in Kenya that was able to pull through this. So there is so much that we've learned in the process, and it will be a great opportunity for you today to listen in terms of what have been the key takeaways, the lessons learned, and how do we move forward next in terms of making the hub more relevant to meet the needs within the region. So I would like to encourage us to be very, very attentive, to contribute meaningfully, and also to be involved as much as we can, ask as many questions, ask for clarifications, give comments, give guidance, so that we can be able together to shape the hub activities in the next 2 to 3 years. So I want to really thank you so much for creating the time. I don't want to go on and on, because with the KIX Hub, it's something that we love so much, so I can talk forever. But I want to wish you very good deliberations today as we discuss, and all the best in this meeting. And thank you so much. Over to you, my colleague, Marianne. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Victoria. Thank you for the welcome. Thank you for the relevance. It means a lot to us to have you welcome us. Colleagues, I would like to now draw your attention to the next point on the agenda. We're going to be seeing some results from a baseline report that was taken, a baseline assessment that was taken earlier this year. I'd like to turn it over now to my colleague, Yvonne Maboya, who is our monitoring and evaluation consultant for the KIX project.
Thank you so much, Marianne. Good afternoon, everyone. All protocols observed. I will be very brief because of the amount of work that we have ahead of us, all the discussions planned, and the short time. So I'd like to take us through a baseline report that we compiled early this year. So I'd call upon Gabriel. Gabriel, just kindly share the screen. Thank you. Thank you, Gabriel. So this is going to be very short. Basically, we'd like to get back to you. This is information that came from countries. So I'd like you to have a look at what countries are saying concerning KIX and what we are doing. So this is the baseline was done in April 2021 and between April and May. Thank you. So we'd like to know who took part in this baseline. So first of all, we had a baseline in 2020, and then a second baseline in 2021. And the reason as to why we did this is because when we did the baseline in 2020, there's some information that one, we did not get, and two, we had few countries participating. So we had to do a repeat baseline. So the list that you'll see here is a compilation of the countries that took a survey in 2020 and also in 2021. So for the first one, the countries that participated, we have Eritrea, Ethiopia, Gambia, Ghana, Kenya, Lesotho, Liberia, Malawi, Mozambique, Nigeria, Rwanda, Sierra Leone, Somalia, South Sudan, Tanzania, Uganda, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. Then what was the purpose of this baseline? So the purpose of the baseline was to create an initial baseline for Africa 19 Hub activity to establish the current state of knowledge creation and exchange, so that as we continue with the program, we'll be able to have a basis upon which we will measure achievements as we go ahead. So how did we collect this information? So the information we used a mixed research approach with online surveys, and then we also used downloadable copies because of the internet connectivity. Some of us were not able to fill the online forms, so we also disseminated downloadable copies to accommodate unreliable internet. So the data, like I said, the data was collected between 22nd of April and 28th of May. Next slide, please. So basically, what were we looking for? So one, what do member states want to do in the hub? Basically, that's what we're interested in. What do you want? Because like Marianne started when Marianne said when she started, that this is all about the countries. KIX is the countries. It's not about Marianne or Yvonne or Victoria or the AU or UNESCO. KIX is about all the countries that are participating. So what do you want to do as member states? So the first one is that access relevant information. So 80% of the respondents say that we want to access relevant information. Another 80% also said they're interested in exchanging experiences within the hub. 60% would want to participate in learning spaces within the hub. 20% would want to build joint agendas with the hub, and 20% would want to do research with the hub. So we are truly hoping that as we go forward, we'll see more of this, an increase when it comes to the number of countries that are going to do research. Thank you. Please continue. So we also asked you who informs educational policies in the countries. Of the countries that responded, we found out that the ministries, the local education groups, NGOs, teachers, education experts, private education institutions, UNICEF, UNESCO, and the European Union are the ones that majorly in most of the countries, these are the people who make decisions when it comes to policies. And then we also sought to understand what are some of the platforms that are where these policies or policy discussions take place. And seminars was one of the platforms that was recognized by almost everyone. Another one is the working groups within the countries, and also at conferences. Okay, then what experience do member states want to share with the hub? So this is a question that we have asked severally. We asked this when we were doing the country mapping exercise in 2020. We also asked this during our pulse survey in April 2021, and also during the repeat baseline and the first baseline. And it's always the same. The priority of all the countries is improving teaching and learning. So 78% said improving teaching and learning is the priority. 55% say that strengthening learning assessment systems is a priority. And then leaving no one behind came in third, meeting the data challenge and leaving no one behind and meeting the data challenge tied at 45%, a priority. And then strengthening early childhood education came in at 35%, and achieving gender equity came in at 11%. So again, this is something that we may need to look at. Is it because we have already achieved this, that is why it is not a priority, or is it just that there's something that needs to be done about that? Thank you. Kindly scroll up. So we also sought to understand the barriers. What are some of the barriers to participation in the hub? And we found out that 56% cited internet connectivity as an issue. So when it comes to internet connectivity, we are looking at anything that is concerned with internet connectivity. Some of you said, sometimes I work far from the office. Sometimes some say that because of the COVID-19, we are working from home and then connection is not good. Some say sometimes the internet is just not good. So all that, we put them together and we categorize it as internet connectivity, which is the majority or is the major reason why people are not connecting. And another one was also competing priorities, where some say that sometimes the calendar of events clash, like we have an activity and you also have an activity in your own country. Sometimes you wish to attend our activities, but then you have an assignment elsewhere. So all that, when we put them together, we found that competing priorities took another 44%. So there were only two major reasons that are hindering participation in hub activities. So we also asked, how often then should we be in touch as the hub or as the secretariat? And 65% of respondents prefer to be informed of activities at least once every 2 weeks. 40% prefer to be informed of activity at least once every month. Thank you. And we'll continue. Then we also sought to understand what are some of the factors that impact knowledge uptake at country level. So we have the positive factors and we also have the negative, those that impact negatively. So the positive, we have political goodwill was cited as one of the factors that impact knowledge uptake. Also development partner support, collaboration amongst all stakeholders, having clear strategic direction, private-public partnerships, and also increased budgetary allocation to education. Then when we asked what are some of the hindrances, there's lack of resources to seek new knowledge. There's low utilization of existing knowledge within the countries, and then non-prioritization of education sector, where some felt that education sector is not being prioritized by the government. Some also talked of brain drain and funding constraints. Brain drain, we are talking of people who are leaving countries to go and work elsewhere. And then there's also poor ICT infrastructure, and there's also changing leadership. So in a nutshell, this is what we found from the baseline survey that we took. Apart from that, we also asked about some of the innovations and some of the reforms, and I'm sure my colleague Marianne shared with all the countries what we found out about the innovations and reforms that are taking place. And we'll ask you to kindly just respond and tell us whether we've captured that data correctly per your country. But these are the salient findings that stood out for us. So I'd welcome all of us for a question and answer session. If you have any question, please kindly, this is the time to ask.
Yes, hello.
Yes, hello.
Yeah, this is Shem. I just have, I think, two observations, or maybe an observation and a question.
Okay.
I'd posted this in the chat. I think the first one is just a clarification. In your presentation, I think on the first slide or the second one, where you had the list of countries, you have some countries that are marked with an asterisk, and you have others that are not. And so I just wanted to be clear, because somewhere down as a footnote, you've indicated that the ones that are marked participated in the baseline survey. So what about the ones that are not marked? Does it mean they didn't participate? So it's just a clarification. I think the second one on the factors that impact, support to the knowledge uptake, you have indicated somewhere down around something around changing leadership being a factor that negatively impacts knowledge uptake. So I'm just wondering whether perhaps strong leadership could be considered as also important, as a contributor to knowledge uptake. What would be your take on that? Thank you very much. Otherwise, a good presentation, short and concise. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shem. So to the first question, okay, countries that participated in the baseline survey. Yes, so we have countries that have participated in baseline 1 and those that participated in baseline 2. But I am sorry, I think this will be misleading if I go by the stars. Sorry for that. Uganda did participate, though in baseline 1, though the information that we received from Uganda was not in line with what we were looking for. I would say that. So we do not have any reports when it comes to Uganda. And then Sierra Leone did participate in baseline 1, but not in baseline 2. Same as Rwanda. Yes. So there are some that participated in baseline 1, but not in baseline 2. So the ones that are marked, these ones participated in, most of them participated in baseline 2. The ones that are marked though we have countries like Ghana that participated in both, even Kenya participated, Gambia participated in both. So that's why I'm saying, let me not go by the star. This was an oversight on my side, my apologies. But Uganda did participate in baseline 1, though the information we received from Uganda was not captured in the report because it was not consistent with what we were looking for. And then Tanzania did participate in baseline 2, but not in baseline 1. South Sudan did participate in both. I hope so that somehow answers your question. So I will not go by the stars. And then when it comes to the second question about changing leadership, yes, you are right. Changing leadership can be both a positive and a negative, depending on the kind of leadership you're looking at. But as per this baseline, it was reported as a negative factor because basically when leadership changes, it changes with probably the top officials. It was cited actually by a few countries as something that is hindering, not supporting. But you are right, it is possible that changing leadership can actually be a factor that will promote knowledge uptake. I don't know whether that answers your question, Shem. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. I think the issue of leadership, there's also now, of course, the issue of institutionalized leadership, and then there's that personal, passion as a leader. And I think that could be probably one of the reasons why when you have a change in leadership, at least from our experience, where the previous leader was passionately involved, including at the individual level, then things were moving. And so you have then perhaps a leadership that is more institution oriented, more protocol, more processes, then perhaps that could be one of the reasons. So, but thank you very much. It really clarifies.
Thank you, Shem. Any other question? I cannot see the chat box, so Marianne, please feel free to jump in if there's something.
No, Yvonne, nothing else yet. It would be great to hear a couple of more questions, particularly from some of the country level officers who are present here today, especially if any of them took part in the original baseline. It could even just be a comment instead of a question. Do you think that this data seems to reflect the assessment that you took, and does it seem to reflect your country situation? Remember that the data was gathered over the course of a year. We took 2 separate baselines, and many of you were present maybe for both of them, especially some of the focal points from ministries. So it would be really great to know, even if you were to just approve it and say that this is reflective of my data, or to even ask a question if something seems to be maybe unclear or not sure why something was organized a certain way. This policy brief, this infographic that Yvonne has been showing us will be published, but we want to get your approval, your validation first. I do see a hand up from Angela.
Thank you, Marianne. May I go ahead?
Yes, absolutely. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Yvonne. And thank you for inviting us to this interesting meeting. I was just looking for some clarification around the presentation where it said that only 45% of countries thought that the data challenge was of interest. Where was that? And I was wondering where that statistic came from, because if I look across the activities of the different communities of practice, I see that the member states from the data challenge are often more active than in some of the other areas. So I was wondering, who was actually targeted in this baseline study? Was it the KIX focal point who had to talk on behalf of all of these topics? Or did you go specifically to the representatives who were in the different groupings?
Okay, thank you so much, Angela. So the baseline was administered at country level, and we had a meeting before that just to orient the participants with what is expected. And it was agreed during that meeting that the information will be presented per country as opposed to per individual, but each country was mandated to discuss amongst themselves, agree, and then one presentation, or rather one tool is filled per country. So it is something that was discussed and agreed upon during a meeting like the one we are having today, and each country had to take the baseline as a country after discussions.
So how do you interpret this? What experiences do member states want to share with the hub? What does that actually mean?
Okay.
I also got a Zoom meeting. Yeah.
Okay,
Hello,
thank you.
everyone. Could you please mute yourself if you're not actually speaking? Thank you so much.
So we are looking at the thematic areas, and we are looking at the priority areas that we would like to share experiences, knowledge, and innovations in. So that is what we meant by that.
Okay,
Does that answer your?
To correlate it with the actual activity in those different thematic areas to get reflection in case there were, shortcuts taken by the country in terms of reporting on the activity in a particular thematic area.
Okay, I did not get that clearly, sorry.
So I just think it would be good to triangulate this with what the actual participation rates were in the different thematic areas to get a true reflection of how active member states have been in those different thematic areas, and not rely on the KIX country focal point to give you a perception supposedly of their country on these thematic areas. That's all I'm saying. It's just I'm looking at the data which was shared earlier about the activity rates and participation rates across the different thematic areas, and they don't quite tally with those percentages. So that's all I'm raising.
Yeah, yes, Angela, they don't, and which is a good thing, because a baseline is you take it at the beginning just to be able to gauge where you are at that particular time, and you should be able to check it against where you're going. And if we are seeing more activity and we are seeing more interest in meeting the data challenge, then that's a good thing. Actually, it tells us that there's something that we are gaining as a hub.
Okay, thank you, Yvonne.
Yes, thank you. Lazarus, you've had your hand up for a while. Lazarus from Zambia.
Hello.
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you very much. I would like also to add on the same issue concerning the issues that are based on the importance of improving teaching and learning. I thought that it could have been better if at all even other teachers have been trained, now to handle learners under inclusive education. Because if at all they are not trained, then you find that the implementation will become very difficult, because more few of the individuals have been trained, but looking at the schools for the implementation of inclusive education requires manpower, and more people have the passion to ensure that the inclusive learning is well implemented. That is what I can have, because I thought that it's not appearing under the challenges that contribute to failure to the implementation of quality education for inclusive learning. That's what I thought can be also an added a challenge.
Thank you. Actually, for the challenge, we were just looking at what is preventing people from participating, or countries from participating in hub activities. Or sorry, in knowledge uptake. So I don't know how you are relating it, but maybe you can explain further, or Marianne, if someone has understood the explanation better.
Can I echo on the same?
Yes, please.
Yes, what I mean is that when you look at the challenges that have been outlined there,
yes,
I thought that for the issue of education to be implemented effectively, more especially under the inclusive education learning, we need also to train more manpower in terms of the teacher to have more knowledge on how to handle. For instance, if the teacher is not well equipped in terms of sign language, we expect this teacher to have a lot of challenges because of the communication barriers that will be there. Even when we look at the visually impaired learners, they need a teacher who is well trained in Braille, and again, clustering the all learners under inclusive learning requires more power, more human power to be trained in those skills. That's what I meant. It can be also another barrier in order to bridge up the gap.
I get you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we have Mamosa.
But can we please make it a bit short, because we have to move on to the next activity. So if you could please, Ms. Mamosa.
Thank you, Marianne, for the reminder. Mamosa, please, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I'm very sorry for connecting late. But I just wanted to know, here in Lesotho, was it carried out by the Ministry of Education or Exam Councils of Lesotho? Because I'm in the ministry myself, and I think I haven't heard of this particular baseline. I don't know if it was carried out maybe by the Examination Council of Lesotho, because we used to work independently and we were working towards actually collaborating all the assessments so that we do not work independently, we work together as a team.
Okay. So we have the focal point from Lesotho in the house. Is he in the house, Marianne? Yes, Lesotho is better place to tell us, because we did receive feedback from Lesotho. And,
yes, thank you very much.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yes, I can. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much. It was pretty much a representation of the entire education sector. The institutions that she's talking about was also part of it. And the ministry through various departments and sections also took part in this. But however, when we came to talk to you, KIX, we selected a few of our senior officers to represent us. So actually it's the sector, the whole education sector in Lesotho. But my colleague at the time was not part of it. He came later when we started talking about issues of connectivity and open EMIS, because that's her area.
Thank you so much for clarification. Mamosa, I hope that clarifies your question.
Yes, it does. Thank you so much, Yvonne.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
So because of time, please just put any other question that you have in the chat box. We'll be sure to respond to it. Marianne tells me my time is over. Thank you very much, Marianne, and over to you.
Thank you so much, Yvonne, and thank you, participants, for your wonderful probing questions. It's great to hear them. We want to take a quick picture before we have members leaving. We have Hamidou Bukhari, some others who need to leave now. So before you leave, participants, could we just take a group photo? Then we'll proceed with the next part of the agenda. So if you can turn on your cameras just for a brief moment or two, and we'll go into gallery and we'll get your pictures to document today. So Gabriel, whenever you're ready. Everyone's looking so good.
All right, picture has been taken. Thank you, everyone.
All right, thank you, Gabriel. All right, everyone. So we've seen this baseline report. I just want to emphasize on a point that Yvonne had made, that this was a starting point. It's not a current point where we are right now with or an ending point. And we know that KIX is you. KIX is not some set standard that doesn't change. It is always evolving. So as more people come in, as more activities happen, the data is naturally going to evolve. This was a moment in time to see where we once were. And this is the first chance we've had to meet with all of you, people from across all thematic areas since we took this back in April. So we're showing it to you to show, really looking back in time, where we started out from. It's not to show where we are right now. And we hope that if we were to take this at the end of this year again, say as a year assessment, we would get very different results again, because we're always evolving. So right now we're going to hear a couple of updates from two of our partners at the African Union and at UNICEF ISARO. So just give me one moment. So we're going to hear a couple of updates on the data challenge in inclusive education. What has been happening recently? Who has been taking part? What is being learned right now? So without any further ado, I would like to ask my colleague, Lukman Jaji, a policy officer at the Pan-African Institute for Education Development at the African Union, to share some updates on the data challenge.
Thank you very much, Marianne. If you can see my screen, it's just a few slides. Can you see my screen, everyone?
Yes, Jaji.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. I just have like a two-slider to share on what we've been doing regarding data challenge. It's quite a lot, but I'm going to summarize, and if there's anything that I've missed, I'm sure Angela will be able to jump into to add to it. So as you all are aware, we did have we started with the learning events, which was built off the rapid assessment that was conducted last year in 2020, which Yvonne alluded to. So the rapid assessment informed us coming up with this 3 learning events. And the first event that we had was centered around learning assessment and EMIS, which of course was well attended by the different DCPs. Then the following week after we had this, we had another one saying applying national, regional and international learning assessment data in school reforms. And then we did have another one to wrap it up, the learning event series, which was feedback mechanisms for schools, like how does the after providing data, what feedback mechanisms are available, what feedback mechanisms are available for these schools to be able to proceed. And then we then proceeded to have another event, another set of activities which was focused around bringing regional economic communities on board this process towards supporting our DCPs. And then we've had engagement with the SADC REC. We did have a meeting with SADC, and then we presented all the activities around how can the member states in that region, for example, strengthen their national data systems through self-assessment and also peer review and peer learning. So we met with SADC first, and we came out with some agreements around what the member states in that region, for example, could do to review the existing norms and standards on EMIS to reflect current realities, issues around COVID, issues around education response, teaching and learning in situations that COVID may have brought to us. So, and then we also sought the high-level political support from these RECs themselves, and we did get things that are positive. So for ECOWAS, yes, we had for ECOWAS last week, we did meet the commissioner there, and they did promise to ensure that all of the member states, all the DCPs in that region will be mobilized to ensure that they participate fully. We've also been collecting data from these DCPs around these norms and standards. We sent out forms, which we're very happy to report that practically all the DCPs have submitted data to see the kinds of, to tell us about the kinds of change they wanted to see themselves within in the norms and standards itself. So that's it's an indicator of success. It's an indicator that the member states themselves the DCPs themselves are interested in actually reviewing this tool for assessment. So the next steps then after this then will be self-assessment. How do we then, after the tool may have been finalized by the team, member states then can use it to conduct self-assessment, of which the report will be submitted to us. The second level then would be peer review and peer learning on strengthening data systems, where one DCP, for example, would peer review another DCP using this norms and standards instrument as a tool. So without, I think that's more or less the summary of all of the activities that we have had in the past 1 year and a half. Angela, you can comment if there's anything. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge. I think you've covered it, and currently what's happened is that we have, using the existing EMIS norms and standards that were developed prior to 2014, new standards have been proposed by member states in the KIX group around changes in technology, changes in terms of new indicators for the SDG4s, for CESA, and then, as Judgy mentioned, looking at issues of how do you deal with rapid needs assessments, remote data collection. So that's been a kind of like an ongoing process, and we've had a couple of communities of practice where member states have either through the Google Forms suggested areas, additional areas, and we're now in the process of actually going through those new standards and finalizing them and getting country agreement on them. And hopefully by Friday, which is tomorrow, most of the DCPs will have completed a first draft of the country assessment based on the Google Forms of the revised EMIS norms and standards. So this is a reminder to those who view from that KIX Data Challenge to remember that this is due tomorrow. So I will be following up and reminding you, but I think that you've covered it sufficiently well. Thank you, Judgy.
Thank you, Jaji, and thank you, Angela, for weighing in. I would like to ask Zamzam now from UNICEF Asaro to please step forward. She's going to share some updates on what's been happening with inclusive education. Zamzam Diab is a KIX consultant at UNICEF Asaro. Zamzam, over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I will share a slide, an infographic later, but I'll just start out by saying what we have been working towards and just giving a bit of background in that. So working really to support and build the capacity to design and implement and monitor inclusive education programs. This includes ensuring that all girls and boys with disability complete education at primary, secondary, and grade level outcomes. So at the UNICEF side from ESARO, and of course in partnership with UNESCO and the African Union, we have recognized really the importance of generating exchange to strengthen national education systems and accelerate education progress. Since COVID-19, the situation has become severe and dire. So one of our learning events was really focused on inclusive education during COVID-19, but I'll get more into details about that. We have partnered and conducted a number of learning events, such as the early child care. We recently just had the inclusive education learning event, and it was focused from a COVID-19 lens. And this happened between September, the last week of September, to October. And I'm just going to share my screen now to kind of show you how our participants were engaged with us here. And this is just a map which is laying out and highlighting the engagement that we received from our participants, countries, the breakdown of who attended, as this meeting was really, really engaging. I would like to just share some of the highlights and the takeaway that we came out of this meeting. And really one of the highlights that were echoed was essentially ensuring all children, youth, including those in remote areas, disadvantaged groups, are back in school, have tailored services and needs to meet their learning, health, and psychological well-being. We recognize that the importance of having adequate support for teachers in support of ICT in inclusive education programming to achieve some of these results. We also recognize through the participation of many of you, children with disabilities face challenges at home and in the learning process. And today you'll hear that example from Uganda as well. So really the need of data, and data remains a huge challenge. We also noticed that through the presentations of our colleagues, sensitivity to children with different needs. We need to be able to identify children early in order to give appropriate support. So many of you have really echoed these sentiments of better collaboration and sharing. And our event, which wrapped up the first week of October, was really a testament to providing this platform. The feedback that we received was very instrumental. And so what are the next steps going forward? We'd really like to take this feedback that we received and the momentum that we have built from the 3 series workshops and start actually building documents around this and building informational infographics that we will be sharing shortly with our colleagues and partners across. But I would like to just end here and say thank you very much for the support. Many of these community practices has allowed us to provide this platform, particularly in the 6 areas that we focus on, particularly in the 3 areas that UNICEF is very interested in, which is gender equality and inclusive education, also on early childhood education. So I'll pause here just for the interest of time. But what I would like to say is we have some interesting lineup from Uganda in terms of some of the learning events what happened in our previous learning event. We are really excited to see the participation coming from the different countries with over 150 of you attending the different series across. And so we'd really like to build up on this momentum and continue to have these learning series as we go forward, but also focus as well on the research aspect and ensure that now we are actually documenting a lot of this information. So that is kind of our next step forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Zamzam, for that. And it's really interesting to see this map of participation. Thank you very much. Yes, we're going to hear from Uganda. We're also going to hear from other participants too. So if you allow me, I would like to move forward with the next point on the agenda. We're going to hear some takeaways, some learning points and some takeaways from recent KIX learning events. As you may recall, throughout July and August of this year, several, I should say, quite a few KIX members came together to deliberate on what makes educational quality. What are the foundations of it? We looked at curriculum, we looked at teacher professional development, teacher initial education, and breadth of learning opportunities. I would like to ask a participant to share what she learned and what she has been thinking about since then, how she has applied some of what she's learned at this community of practice. So could I ask Professor Betty Azati to step forward? Professor Azati is the Dean of the School of Education at Makerere University in Uganda, and she's the chairperson of the task force for the establishment of the Uganda National Institute for Teacher Education. We're most honored by your presence, and we would love to hear from you now. And your slides are right here.
Thank you very much, Marianne. I'm in the car, and if you don't mind, I would put off my video as I speak to the slide. So good afternoon, everyone. As Marianne has said, I did attend the session on foundations of educational quality, and we covered quite a number of things. So the next slide, please. Marianne, yes, yeah. So on your screen are some of the areas that we covered during the 6 sessions. We had 6 sessions. They were all great sessions, lots of learning, lots of sharing. And so it covers the area of strategic planning, design, development, area of professional development, competence-based assessment, monitoring and evaluation, qualities and practice, as well as case studies on stakeholder engagement and scaling of innovations. Apology for that spelling mistake. And so going through all the 6 sessions, and I want to say, Marianne has said that I chaired task force, which was put together by the Ministry of Education to set up the Uganda Institute of Teacher Education, that is going to be a degree awarding institution for teachers, because the policy that was passed in 2019 requires that all teachers in the country, irrespective of their level, should have a bachelor's degree. And so I'm heading that task force, and we are in the advanced, I would say, advanced stage now of ensuring that this institution is put into place. And so these sessions on foundations of quality education comes at a point when we were beginning to actually design our curriculum. Next slide. And so going through the 6 sessions, there were very many things definitely that were of benefit to us, but I just want to pick on that 4 that we've been able to think through in the process of coming up with the curriculum of initial teacher education, but at the same time thinking about the teachers who are currently teaching in the schools and the teachers who are the teacher educators who are going to implement the curriculum that we're designing. How do we improve their skills and knowledge base to be able to implement the curriculum we're designing? And that is where teacher professional development then comes in, and I'll speak to it a little later. So I speak in relation to the 4 things. CBC is consultative. CBC assessment drives learning. You know, in teaching and learning, students think about the exams, teachers think about the teaching. So the more aligned the teacher's thinking is to the students' thinking, the better learning. And so how do you actually make this come through? I'll speak to that a little later. And we've also talked about issues of holistic person, so that it's development of not just the cognitive component. And so we also look through in our several meetings. How do we bring in cross-cutting issues, and then teacher development, professional development, of course. Next slide.
Also, Professor Azati, you're about halfway through your time, just to keep watch on the time, just letting you know.
Okay, can you just take me to the next slide then? Let me just jump that. I've already spoken to it. Next. Okay, and so what are some of the things that we did? Of course, having thought about the kind of teacher we want. Now, the curriculum that we are developing, if I speak to assessment that speaks to formative assessment as more important than summative, we have decided that our exams will be 40% and coursework will be 60%, and this will be throughout the semester. We've also introduced in our curriculum tutorial hours as well as practical hours. In many of our teacher education institutions, they don't have this, they basically have lecture hours. And so we're thinking about the issue of CBS, CBC rather, and thinking if we don't have tutorials, if we don't have practicals, we won't go through, and then closely aligning the curriculum of teacher education to the primary school curriculum as well as the secondary school curriculum. Of course, blended because of the situation we're in, we're also thinking of that. The next slide. This is another thing that we're thinking about. I did talk about cross-cutting issues, and we have issues of gender, issues of HIV, issues of violence, which we've tried to integrate in the curriculum, as well as literacy. We have actually literacy as a standalone course for the primary school teacher because of the poor literacy levels of our learners. We've included research as a key component in our course, so that our teachers are able to reflect on their practice in the hope that they will improve as a result of that practice. And at the same time, we're thinking about some of the Afrocentric values that are important that can be incorporated in the curriculum, and we've tried to incorporate that as well. So I really don't have time. I would have spoken so much into this curriculum, but I think I want to end here by just saying that yes, training came at the right time. We've been able to use the knowledge that we gained from this training to ensure that we develop a curriculum that hopefully will improve the quality of our teachers once they take that curriculum. Thank you, Marianne.
Thank you so much, Professor Azati, and we anxiously await new updates. It seems like there's a lot happening that could be of value for many of us to learn about. So we thank you very much for your presentation. And colleagues, we will share the slides with everyone. So if we didn't get a chance to see everything, it's because of the time. We are only here for 2 hours and we want to hear from many people, but we will share them later. So thank you for your patience and thank you for your brevity, Professor Azati. We are also going to hear from participants who took part, who are still taking part actually, in ongoing work conducted by the African Union on confronting the data challenge in education. You may remember that the community of practice formally began in May of this year, but it has been an ongoing endeavor, and there have recently been quite a few meetings, which I'm sure that we will hear more from Ms. Mimosa. So I would like to ask Ms. Mimosa to step forward. I hope that she's been able to join. Ms. Mimosa is the Senior Data Administrator at the Ministry of Education in Lesotho. So Ms. Mimosa, are you able to hear me?
Yes, I can.
Excellent. So we don't have any slides.
I'm here.
But
yeah.
Yes, but you can begin whenever you're ready. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, everyone, and Marianne. Actually, what this training came at the right time, like the previous presenters just said. Here in Lesotho, we are actually collecting and aggregated data on the institutions. So as the training went by, we realized that we are actually on the right track because we are in the process of implementing in collecting the individual student data, which I have seen that here when we are conducting the workshops is very vital for us to have an individual data of students so that we can keep track of them. Even though the challenges here in Lesotho is that most of the schools don't have electricity, and some of them are in the mountainous areas where they are highly inaccessible. Therefore, we can't really have 100% collection of data. That is where our challenges really lie. But we are working very well because almost around 80, if not 90, I guess Mema Lishwani would add on that if we still have time. She can clearly put on the picture of how much of data collection strategy have we actually achieved. And I realized that these meetings are very important for us here in Lesotho because our EMIS, we don't really meet more often, but the KIX meetings help us realize the gaps that we have on our EMIS, and hence we are actually taking notes on what is actually lacking on our EMIS system, and we are planning on to improving on it as we are attending the meetings more often and having interaction with other countries. We are also planning, I've realized when we are attending the meetings that it's very vital for us to input our learning assessments, incorporate them into our EMIS system. And I think we are actually on the right track right now to collect all the learning assessments that are available in our country and incorporate them into our EMIS system. Lastly, I think our EMIS system, as we have been improving, we have been confronting a huge challenge on the feedback. If Ma'am Malishwani can hear, she can also add on also on that because she's really involved in the data collection. I am just the front end person who ensures that data gets in correctly and then comes out correctly as I'm involved in the database. But with a few knowledge that I have, I understand that going to the field and collecting data is not really that easy for them, because in most cases, the teachers or the principals don't have time to fill in the forms because we give out the ER for 42 in a hard copy format. So you can imagine right now, as the COVID was our challenge for the whole world, we couldn't access anyone from the schools. It was just a huge challenge for us to collect that data. But we are working on actually having a soft copy format and other strategies that the ministry has for us to connect some few schools with the funding that is available. And the Home Affairs is also involved in helping us, giving each and every child a birth certificate so that it would be very easy for us to collect this individual data that we are all hoping for in the future. That is all that I had prepared for you for now.
Thank you so much, Ms. Mimosa, for sharing that. Again, just like in Uganda, we also look forward to hearing what's developing in Lesotho. So we know that we'll see you again. We know that you're in touch. We know that you're committed. So we look forward to continuing to work with you. So
Thank you.
We also want to hear now about disability inclusive education. So we have a member with us, in fact, quite a few members who have been taking part in this community of practice, and the learning just began. It didn't end, but it just simply began with these 3 workshops. So if I could ask Ms. Sarah Bagozi to come forward now and speak. Sarah is the Commissioner of Special Needs and Inclusive Education at the Ministry of Education in Uganda. So over to you, Sarah.
Thank you so much. I had sent earlier my presentation in PowerPoint. I don't know whether it can be projected.
So Sarah, this is what I have. Is this the correct one? This is what I have right now.
Yes, please.
Yes.
Okay, let me proceed. This was in relation to the takeaways. This is Uganda's presentation on key takeaways. The learning we picked from the workshops, connections, and then promising practices from the workshop at the KIX workshops. Well, one of the things that we learned was that for us to thrive in ICT and inclusive education, there should be an enabling environment. And in this, we realize different countries are prioritizing the development of policy frameworks as a way to mainstream and sustain ICT and inclusion. The policies is though still in the approval process. This is already an opportunity for meaningful and equitable use of ICT for inclusion and the integration of ICTs in education. Then two, we also realized that both Kenya and Uganda were able to demonstrate the commitment of government in developing policies and frameworks to advance inclusive education. Then the other one is about inclusion. And in this, we realize that in inclusion, we should digitalize with equity. So under this is that inclusion is essential to achieve the development objectives. And then two, it's therefore important to design and develop inclusive solutions to support delivery of inclusive content and information. Then three, we should go for the most difficult to reach and the most vulnerable populations first. If it works in the most challenging areas, then it will mean that this will work everywhere. Then three, in Uganda, where the digital divide tends to mirror economic divide, we need to be intentional in tackling rural areas, then also focus on persons with a disability, then the refugees, and those are the kind of examples we want to really look at. Then the other one is about capacity and ICT pedagogy. In this one, teachers' ICT capacity is generally very low. Then secondly, limited local capacity to adapt textbooks using the universal design for learning, except for Kenya, because when our colleagues of Kenya presented, they seemed to have even the local people doing a lot in terms of those adapted textbooks, which with us in Uganda, we're still developing capacity for the local people to also adapt textbooks. Then three, building the capacity of teachers, local textbook designers, and other key stakeholders is a sure way for children with disabilities to benefit from ICTs. Because if we continue only as Ministry of Education and only partners, there we shall not be moving faster. So we need everybody to get on board. All stakeholders should come on board so that our learners with disabilities benefit from the ICTs. It's crucial that the skills of teachers in basic digital literacy, digital pedagogy, and utilization skills is improved. This will increase the quality of instruction and delivery. Then lastly, classroom arrangement, size management, assessment are all critical areas when using ICTs for teaching and learning. Then the other area was coordination, co-creation, and partnerships. It is critical to have a coordinated engagement of implementing partners and partnership based on the different stakeholders' areas of expertise and focus. In this one, we would want to see everybody engaged. And then for us as Education and Sports, we should holders participate in the implementation of the ICTs and inclusive education, and each of them should come with their expertise on board. Then secondly, combine efforts where it makes sense, for example, to address the digital infrastructure challenges of access, connectivity, electricity, with partners with relevant government authorities and the private sector. Because all these ones, connectivity and electricity, are a very big challenge to access. Then thirdly, GIGA, the global initiative of UNICEF in partnership with the International Trade Union, also has the potential to solve some of these problems by connecting all schools to internet. Coordination is critical for bringing existing solutions to scale up the EDT in East African regions. This one, we had a presentation on GIGA, and we're really encouraged as countries to see that we'll partner with GIGA to ensure that our countries have access to internet connectivity, to these gadgets, so that our learners can also equally benefit. Then lastly,
I'm so sorry, Miss Sarah, but your time has exceeded the 5 minutes. Please try to keep it very brief.
This is the last one, knowledge management and resources. One, we strengthen linkages for collaborative work with disability organizations, universities, and relevant institutions. Then two, the accessible digital textbook portal is a great resource to access resourceful documents, showcase our work, but also to learn and share experiences to promote universality and growth in inclusive education. Thank you so much for listening to me, and I'm sorry that I went against the time. Thank you, over to you.
It's a very easy thing to do, going over time. We all do it. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you very much for sharing. We also had a community of practice in early childhood education. However, due to a cancellation, we will not have anybody sharing about this point right now, but that means that it just gives more opportunities to share later when you're in your breakout rooms. We know that there are plenty of people here today from UNICEF. We have representation from FCAN as well, the African Early Childhood Network. So we know that there are people here who can weigh in on this very important issue, but we'll allow you time to do that a little bit later in breakout rooms. So colleagues, I'm just going to take you a couple of minutes through a couple of slides before we get ready to break off into our own discussion groups. So now the spotlight goes to you. We're asking you how you plan on applying your knowledge, your learning, both through KIX and also maybe through other ways in which you've been learning too, since we last spoke with you through the KIX platform. We know that learning comes from many different ways and platforms. So we want to capture what you have learned, especially the KIX learning, but also what's been happening in these thematic areas for you since we last spoke to you. So there are a couple of ways in which we can move forward together. Both you and your own departments and your own organizations and your own ministries, as well as together with other ministries that we may regionally share a border with, or that we don't, but that we want to learn from. So there are a couple of strategies for us to do exactly what we just heard from three representatives, to connect learning together, to take it forward, to do something with our learning. So for example, we could hold an internal meeting. You could hold internal meetings within your own departments in ECE, EMIS, curriculum, teacher professional development, learning outcomes, etc. You could hold your own meetings and in the name of KIX, and we'd be happy to support you in doing this. These meetings could be small meetings, as small as 5 individuals or as large as 50 people from across the ministry who you may want to bring on board to discuss a pertinent issue that you're working on. This could become a KIX activity, and we're happy to support you in this and making that happen. You could also host a national dialogue. And we recently assisted Kenya in hosting a national dialogue, and we know that there are other countries who want to have a dialogue as well on a national level between members from the ministry, members from local education groups, researchers, teacher representatives who are taking part in current reforms about where are we headed and where have we come so far, and what resources can we ask from KIX, from the KIX Hub, all of you, to better inform the reforms that we're doing. So I would ask my colleague Gabriel to please share a YouTube link for the recent national dialogue that was held in Kenya. It's a 5-minute video, and we encourage you to watch it later on today when this meeting ends. If you feel, as a country representative, that a national dialogue between different members, stakeholders in your country is the way to go, we at KIX, the Secretariat, can help you make it happen. You can also organize capacity strengthening in your own ways for your own contexts. We know that after some of the work that we did in teacher professional development and informative assessment, some people were inspired to do something with that and wanted to host their own workshops to take some of that back to people in their own departments. This is a great way to do that, to apply the knowledge that you are taking away, that you can apply. So you could also conduct action research within maybe around current reforms that you're implementing or areas that you want to learn more about. KIX really stands for knowledge and innovation exchange. So that is KIX, and you are KIX. So how can we come together to better learn? Action research, experiential learning, these are great ways to do this. You may want to partner up with another department. You may want to partner with another country, a country that's doing something that you would like, or that you can see happening in your own, that you'd like to learn more about. So partnering and clustering is another way to do this, to take part in action research, knowledge exchange. At KIX, we could help to hold a meeting between two countries, like a bilateral meeting, so that two countries can speak about a certain topic, rather than having a large meeting with lots of people present like this one. It could be more, it could be smaller. So, and there may be many other strategies that you can propose as well. So we're going to ask you in just a moment to take part in breakout rooms. Earlier, we had shared with the focal points what some of the takeaways are at a national level. So this is one example of what those takeaways look like. So for example, members from the Gambia participated in all of the learning events so far this year. And we asked people, how will you apply this in your area of responsibility when you leave this workshop? And they've said things like this, such as engaging relevant stakeholders through a multidisciplinary approach to address issues of access, equity, and equality in early childhood education. So today, what we're going to do is think about together, what is it that we need to do next, and how can we use the platform of KIX, the resources, the technical support to move forward. So we're going to be breaking up into breakout rooms for a regional discussion right now. What have we taken away or learned from recent learning events, either through KIX or through our own developments recently? We really want to hear, though, how KIX has been influencing your thinking, but we understand that you may also have been doing a lot of work on your own, and we'd like to hear about what you have been learning recently. How can we synthesize our knowledge and continue or strengthen knowledge and innovation exchange in this particular area? So there are 4 themes that we're talking about today. And of course, the underlying themes of equity and inclusion and gender always affect what we do. But the 4 main themes are strengthening early childhood education, teaching and learning, EMIS systems, and inclusive education. And we also want to ask you, what resources do you expect from the KIX Africa 19 Hub? What kind of technical support may you need? And so we're going to ask you to take part in a discussion. Some of you may be combined with other countries, that's fine, but we have national level notes for you to take to take. So this is an example of what one note looks like. So this is Liberia's. We're going to share a link in the chat box to a Google folder. And in that folder, there's going to be 18 documents. One of them is for each country. We ask that you open it up, you click on it and open it up, and then take notes during the discussion for your own country. Even if you are the only person present, we ask that you take some notes on your own country's document. So even if you are with 3 other countries, try to take notes on your own in your own document. These are really important, and we will be looking at these, and we will be helping you, supporting you going forward with your own plans. So even if your notes are very similar to other countries, we ask that you do them in your own document. And if you are all from the same country, then what you can do is elect one person from that group to take notes on behalf of the group. So we will have enough time for this, about 20 minutes for this. We were going to have more time, but the time has been a little bit reduced. So just try to spend about 5 minutes on each thematic area, thinking about these questions. What have we been learning about this area? How can we synthesize this knowledge and better apply it? And what kind of knowledge and resources do we expect from this platform of KIX? So I'm stopping sharing my screen. I think now we have about half an hour left for the meeting, so it would be a good time to go into breakout rooms. When you see the invitation, please do click on join. And we'll see you in about 20 minutes. The link needs to be shared for the Google Doc folder, so I'll do that right now in the chat box.
Megan, I've shared the link.
Thank you.
Also shared. Okay.
Thank you. And my colleagues from UNESCO and UNICEF and AU, could we please make sure that participants know where to go for their notes? All right, people are slowly coming back now. I see we have a full group. So everyone, thank you for taking part in those discussions. Please ensure that there are some notes taken on your country Google Doc, because those are the best resources that we have at the Secretariat to ensure that we're supporting you as much as we can. So if there's nothing there for your country, then it looks as if there wasn't much said there, although there may have been a lot said. So please make sure that there are some notes there, especially in terms of where you'd like to go next, whether you want to have a national dialogue or an internal meeting or something else, and what type of resources you would expect from KIX to do this, technical support or knowledge resources or something else. So please do let us know. This is a way for us to hear from you so that we can continue to improve the hub for you. So we have a couple of minutes left, and we're not going to go too much overtime at all. I think just 3 or 4 minutes more total. We're going to hear now from Gabriel McBibb on what type of KIX resources are currently available. I should say KIX knowledge resources that are currently available to all of you. We know that research is a huge part of KIX and ongoing knowledge that we're co-creating and co-discovering together. So I'd like to ask Gabriel to take over and share some resources now. Thank you.
Thanks, Marianne. I hope everyone can see my screen. Wonderful. So I'll be briefly overviewing some of the knowledge resources that country partners have access to. And so in an assessment of ICT needs in 2020, KIX identified limited access to relevant knowledge and evidence, its partial use in the complex realities of policymaking, and insufficient systems to support its exchange and uptake as major impediments that hold back meaningful progress in education across the continent. So with this information in mind, tools through the form of, number one, a digital repository hosted on the ICPA website, and number two, the GPE KIX library hosted on the GPE website were created. So the purpose of these online platforms is to ensure that evidence-based solutions get in the hands of national policymakers and directly feed into policy dialogue and planning processes to produce, integrate, and scale knowledge and innovation in GPE partner countries. All knowledge products developed through KIX will be global public goods and available to all through the online platforms that can be found in the mentioned databases. So the digital repository was launched in December 2020 to facilitate the exchange of knowledge and resources and education in the hub's 18 member countries, including stakeholders and the general public. The repository is uniquely focused on evidence from the countries that are covered by the Africa 19 hub across East, West, and Southern Africa, and was developed to be a one-stop resources for African education policymakers. So over the past 4 community of practices, we have been utilizing our digital repository to upload useful documents such as policy guidelines, annual reports, and country presentations that are presented during these meetings to provide accessibility to the knowledge generated during these discussions. And so just to provide a sense of the number of resources available on the digital repository across KIX 6 thematic areas, as well as country policy documents, this slide shows there's over 200 documents and all 18 countries are represented with resources from across various themes, as well as specific policy documents. The second knowledge database that our hub utilizes is the KIX library. So the KIX library contains evidence based on education, innovation, and development contexts from all KIX regions, so including French-speaking countries from the continent, as well as countries in Europe, Asia, the Pacific, and Latin America. So the GPE library can be filtered through resource type, languages, and again, regions, sources, and topics. And I will quickly go to both the repository as well as the GPE website, so people can get a sense of what exactly, how to access these resources. So for example, this is the KIX page on the ICPA website. And if you go to the Africa Digital Repository, you'll be able to access all of these resources. So for those who attended the Teaching and Learning and Community of Practice recently, you can find resources from the African Curriculum Association here. So for example, if you go to the competency-based assessment pack, we will find all of those resources here. And the other page that I would like to show participants is the GPE KIX library. And so you can easily find that by doing gpekix.org and then /library. And so, for example, you can find the full recording of the recent Kenya KIX dialogue here. And you can also sort by resource type, by language, as well as what the source is. And so with that, that is the end of the knowledge management sharing. So thank you very much. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out at any point, and we would love to support your ability to access some of these information. Thank you again, and I will pass it back to Marianne.
Thank you, Gabriel, for that. And it would be great if we could also share some links in the chat box as well to some of these resources. So we have the digital repository, which in fact is actually a collection of documents from all of you, from ministries. It was collected last year. We also have the KIX library. There are quite a few resources. We know, though, that these are imperfect, they are incomplete. So we're asking you, as new policies are created, to please send them to us, or as new resources and new research is made, please send them to us so we can add them to the repository as a library of African knowledge for African stakeholders. The time for the meeting is over today, and I think today we have definitely achieved a lot in terms of sharing and articulating where we want to go next and what type of resources that we would need from KIX. So I won't keep you any longer, except to say adieu, goodbye, and we will see you soon. We know that many of you are still connected to KIX through the communities of practice, but also through national delegations. So we're not going anywhere. It's just goodbye for now, but we'll see you very soon again. There are some questions in the chat box. Yes, these are open resource documents, Jacqueline, so you can use them, you can share them. You can also add to them by sending us an email with a new resource. We'd be happy to add resources from perhaps your institution. So please do contribute as well as browse. So Bezuit, we can share the closing slide. Thank you very much, everyone. We'll be seeing you very soon, and we'll be sharing the slides and updates as we go along.
Thank you.
Thanks, Marianne.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone, and bye.
Bye.